Welcome to this week's edition of Second City Sports Zoom Style.
Zoom style?
Yeah, Zoom style.
Along with Lakeena McGee and Jason Pfeiffer, I'm Sid the Kid. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at SidKid80. Once again, at SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80. Lakeena?
You can follow me at Keena McGee on Twitter, at Keena __ McGee on the Instagram.
And you can follow me at Truth and Reason _ on the Twitter. And you can follow the show's Twitter handle at 2NDCSCHI.
All right, guys, we have a potential guest joining us hopefully later in the program. I won't reveal that now, but in the meantime, in between time, we have a lot to get to. Let's first start with baseball. As of this recording of this podcast, tonight's game between the Miami Marlins and the Baltimore Orioles, it was supposed to be the home opener for the Marlins, has been postponed. And the New York Yankees and the Philadelphia Phillies, their game tonight has been postponed as well due to 14 members of the Miami Marlins baseball team testing positive for the coronavirus, including 2 coaches. I'll go around the panel. I'll start with you first, Jason. Listening to these hot take shows this morning, listen to national and local radio. Many people reading between the lines, but some people are saying that the season will be postponed for a couple of weeks. Others are saying they should cancel the season already. Where do you stand on this?
Yeah, I'm probably leaning more towards the season probably being canceled, unfortunately, Sydney and Lakeena. It's not the fact that, you know, we didn't know that players would probably test positive for this virus. That was sort of a given going into this particular situation with Major League Baseball. But I believe the glaring misstep here now is the fact that they were not able to play in a bubble. I think it makes exposure that much more exponentially greater to these players, and the concern obviously is safety. You know, some of these players are wives are pregnant and, you know, having children. Mike Trout in particular, you know, one of the faces, if not the face of baseball. He's about to have a child, and you have one team in this particular case affecting 4 teams, and I expect this number to grow as these players and as these teams move around these cities. And again, it's not a complete surprise that we have this sort of situation with the Miami Marlins, but again, I think the fact that they're not playing in a bubble puts the season in danger, in my opinion, because you can do all you can as an organization to, you know, try to provide clean facilities and safe facilities. But again, when we're talking about inner city travel throughout this country, it just makes it that much more dangerous for exposure and the potential for exposure.
See, for me, look, you look at what MLS, what they've been able to do the last couple of days. They've tested everybody that's been in that bubble. Everyone's tested negative. Premier League just in their session yesterday. They've tested like 2,200 people, and that's players, managers, media people, PR people. They've had 0 positive tests. The fact that they've been able to kind of do this in a bubble, and in England, they've actually been able to contain, and also, you know, in Italy, Juventus won the Serie A title, which is the top tier title in Italy for like the 500th time. No, actually, it's only the nighttime, but you get what I'm saying. But they haven't had any positive tests either. So in Germany, of course, we talked about it a couple of weeks back. They just finished their season. Look, MLB, the players union didn't want a bubble. You know, that option was out there. They decided not to. And, you know, Miami, considering the fact that Florida is one of the hot spots, excuse me, for this, you know, this illness, and, you know, this unfortunately doesn't surprise me. But the fact that, you know, they didn't do the bubble, you know, now they're doing meetings, and then all these hot takes from people say, well, they should cancel the season, or they should postpone it, or you see, you know, I'm seeing some people say, well, look, here's all the people who are cheering for the virus. I mean, that just, okay, can we just slow down here for a second? And look, the science, we're still learning more and more about this virus, and it still could be lingering effects for people, even if you're able to recover. So I think people need to kind of follow the science and stop being in denial. And baseball needs to figure out something, because the NBA, they've been able to kind of, we'll talk about them in a little bit, but they've been able, for the most part, they've been able to kind of keep everybody like in the bubble and even keeled. And we talked about MLS, they've done it. The NWSL, I mean, unfortunately the Red Stars lost to the Houston Dash yesterday for the title, but they were able to do it. Granted, there was only 8 teams, I think they were only that played, but they only have eight players and 8 teams, I should say, in the league, but they've been able to they were able to do all this within just a few weeks. So I think baseball, this should have been put together a lot better. Well, let's just say that. What do you think, Sid?
Yeah, just a reminder for people listening, the Miami Marlins had their opening weekend series at Philadelphia. And you just mentioned, Lakeena, that Florida is one of the hot spots. This happened, and they were away from home. And so that tells you something right there. Now, going back to the connection with our local teams, the Chicago Cubs, as of this broadcast, I don't know if they have taken off on the airplane yet, but they're supposed to be playing the Cincinnati Reds in Cincinnati tonight. And the reason why I bring up that situation is because Cincinnati had 3 players tested positive for the virus yesterday, and 1 player was scratched off the lineup late due to coronavirus. So I know some people, I'm sure they're talking right now saying, should the Cubs even travel to Cincinnati? Assuming that they're traveling to that city right now, should they play tonight's game or tomorrow night's game? We already talked about how the New York Yankees, they're not playing tonight against Philadelphia in Philadelphia. I know the 2 teams were supposed to split 4 games this week, 2 in Philly and then 2 in New York. I know they may have to play all 4 of those games in New York City. We shall see what Major League Baseball does. But I'm kind of with you, Lakeena. What we try to do on this show is, we're not trying to be doom and gloom, but we're not going to let our heads fall in the sand either. We have to deal with reality.
Right.
Like you guys been saying, we learning something new about this virus every single day. And if this comes down that baseball didn't have a backup plan, it's just in case something like this happened, shame on baseball and shame on Commissioner Rob Manfred, because like you guys have been saying, like most people have been saying, if you thought that you were going to get through the season with 0 positive tests, you're crazy, or you didn't think that a potential of this kind of outbreak on one team could happen, shame on you.
Yeah, I mean, I really couldn't have said it better myself, Sydney. And again, I don't think either of us are surprised that some players are coming back positive. I think even the players themselves were aware of this. But again, it's also, I think, the unknown of having to rely on other organizations and other teams to keep them safe, keep opposing players safe. And I think that is part of what is nerve-wracking about it, because Anthony Rizzo just came out with a few comments about it yesterday, or the day before, I think. And he basically said it is nerve-wracking because you don't know, how these facilities are being handled. And it's not it's not a shot at these organizations, but there is so much that we just don't know yet. And it's a little bit scary for a lot of these players.
You look at what's been, and we've been mentioning this for like the last few weeks here, that unfortunately, yes, you're going to have positive tests. That's just the reality, especially since you have guys that are going to be going home and then, maybe going to hotels and whatnot. So unfortunately, this is sort of one of those cases where, like, this is what happens when you don't have guys in a bubble. Now, look, the NFL, again, we'll talk about them, I'm sure, in a little bit, but they've had to kind of come to an agreement with the players' union saying, okay, look, we want, daily testing and, have sanitizing, at the facilities, wipes and, and stuff like that to kind of keep them in those facilities. But you sort of wonder, how, where, and everything. And it's just unfortunate that I'm sick of hearing all these hot takes and from people, and like you said, I mean, look, here we're gonna listen. We're not gonna be like the doom and gloom people. We're not gonna be like stomping our feet and saying, "Let us should cancel sports." But at the same time, we're not gonna we're gonna give you the facts. The facts is what we will give you. So I think people just need to kind of sit back and just think about what they're gonna do here, and if they don't have a plan B, I mean, that's on them if they don't have a plan B for this, because the players apparently they didn't want to do the bubble in Arizona and Florida, but now none of what's been happening. So I don't know where else do you cancel? Do you maybe like postpone for 2 weeks and see how it goes and just quarantine everybody? Or do you just cancel? I don't think you should cancel it yet, but I think it doesn't look good for baseball at this point, at least at this moment.
I've heard some people say that how the Major League Baseball looks quote unquote smart now that they didn't have the bubble in Arizona and in Florida, because back in April, we talked about this before, Lakeena, it was also those other issues that got in the way, but people didn't want and players didn't want the bubble in Arizona and Florida, and now those two states are the leading hotspots for coronavirus spiking back up. So I know baseball can't take the credit literally and say, "Oh, we look smart right here," but if they thought that they were going to keep the test to a minimal, they're crazy, or I'm sure they didn't think that this situation could happen. Now it's on the front of their doorstep, and it's time for the commissioner, Rob Manfred, to step up and do something about it. Do they have a plan B? However they handle this situation, heaven forbid that this outbreak goes to another team, what are you going to do then?
Yeah, because again, the highly contagious factor of it is probably going to be the sort of deciding factor, I guess, to not to be too punny, but will another team sort of see a spike in positive tests, right? Like the Marlins have. That is what is going to be the spotlight on, as far as Major League Baseball and Rob Manfred. How do they respond to something like this? Because, like you said, Sydney and Lakeena, if they didn't at least somewhat expect a result like this, then that's on them, and that's what's really unfortunate.
Well, and also, the gloom and doom folks, the gloom and doom crowd, as I call them. You look at that in college football, Michigan State and Rutgers have had to quarantine their whole team because some of their players and staff have tested positive. I mean, look, this is just unprecedented what we're going through right now, and I just think that, listen, in the hospitals, the doctors and the medical folks, they're dealing with it as they go. The people who are handling it for the teams and for the leagues, they're handling as they go. But I mean, the fact that the other countries have been able to contain it for the most part, I mean, why can't we contain it here? Again, we can go into a long tangent about it, but we're not a political show, so we're not going to start now. But I just think that it's a real shame, and it's unfortunate that in this country that we haven't been able to contain, after all these months, we haven't been able to contain this.
Yeah, agreed.
Yep, same here.
All right, so let's talk about something on the field, since we can. Both the Cubs and the White Sox. I mean, the Cubs got took 2 out of 3 for the Brewers. White Sox unfortunately lost 2 of 3 to the Twins. So
I'm not throwing in the towel.
Well, no. Well, you shouldn't, but we'll start with the Sox first. But you look at how many runs they gave up in their losses. I think this is gonna be and the defense. I've been saying this. The defense has been an issue, and it was an issue last year for the Sox. It's going to be an issue again this year, and that's why I'm not throwing a tally at either. But don't be surprised if the White Sox end up lingering at 500 because of this.
Yeah, you saw that in Friday's game. Larry Garcia was a starter at second base. He had a much better game on Saturday. Well, in Friday's game, he had a couple of big plays that he misjudged the fly balls on. And that's what set the Sox back in that whole opener. Even though the offense did strike back, their defense kept them from winning the whole opener. Now, in Saturday's game, the offense came alive, and they were able to sustain it. And number 2, as far as that game is concerned, shout out to Dallas Keuchel, and this is what you expected from him, signing as a free agent from the Houston Astros. He gave you 6 solid innings, kept the Minnesota Twins lineup at bay, and the Sox were able to pull out the victory. Now, in Sunday's game, it was total opposite. I had this thought even before this pandemic. Ronaldo Lopez, we all know that he has the talent, but inconsistency has been his problem. And you saw that in the first inning in Sunday's game. I know he left the game with a shoulder injury. I'm not going to question whether it was the injury is legit or not. I'm not going to get into that. But I had this thought going into the season, regardless of what we're going through right now. If he didn't show some consistency as being a caliber starting pitcher, you may have to throw him in the bullpen. And I will give him about 2 to 3 more starts. If he shows some inconsistency, you may just throw him in the bullpen for the rest of the year.
Yeah, listen, for me, big spotlights on Lucas Giolito and contrastly Dallas Keuchel. I think it was James Fox that we talked to last week from
Yes.
FutureSox.com, and I got him to talk about the Keuchel signing. I thought it was big then. I'm going to say it again. I think it's big now. I personally think he's probably going to emerge as the number 1 pitcher on the White Sox. Mr. Fox didn't seem to think so. He had him in the 2 or 3 spot, but listen, for me, I think Lucas Giolito, I don't think this is a one-off. I think he's going to struggle with really good teams this year. There's a book on him now, and well, not to say that there wasn't a book on him last year, but he sort of quote unquote snuck up on a lot of teams and was able to pitch really well for especially the first half to 3/4 of the season last year. You saw in the back half him tail off a little bit. Again, I don't think what happened on the home opener is a one-off, even though the Twins have a very powerful lineup, maybe arguably the best in the American League. I know the Astros and the Yankees lineup will have something to say about that. Giancarlo Stanton, especially. I think we'll talk about him in a few minutes. But seriously, this is back to the starting pitching for me. And what is Lucas Giolito gonna do? Because again, I think if he doesn't make some adjustments, he's going to struggle a lot this year. And again, on the contrast of that, I think Dallas Keuchel, that was an excellent start. Like you mentioned, Sydney, he did exactly what he was supposed to do, coming off of a blowout loss in the first game. Just come out and establish himself in that second game, 6 solid innings. And I think, again, this is a big signing for the White Sox. I think he's going to be the guy that carries that bullpen. You just need a little more consistency from that offense, and I still think they're going to compete.
Well, look, like I said, I think, look, Jimenez did his thing, Luis Garcia did his thing. I think sort of a surprising, Abreu, you have your Abreu jersey on there, Sid, he did his thing too for a couple of those wins. But like I said, I mean that their defense is still, I'm a little leery of their defense, and some of the bullpen. I mean, and look, that Twins lineup is massive. Nelson Cruz, I think, showed once again he's a Chicago baseball killer. He's done it in both leagues on both sides of town. But yeah, look. I mean, I'm not like I said, I'm not throwing a tally yet for the White Sox. I mean, they're gonna be right there in their division, and for those all those wild card spots, like 12 wild card spots that they're gonna have. But yeah, look. I mean, look, their offense is fine. Like I said, the defense is still an issue, and that back end of that rotation is still a big issue too for the Sox.
Yeah, props to a rookie outfielder, Luis Robert, from belting his first home run in Sunday's loss to the Twins. That young man's going to be a player, and yes, he's going to struggle a little bit, but I think he's going to be a 5-tool player, and I'm looking forward to much bigger hits coming off that young man's back.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with that even more. And again, I still like the White Sox to compete in that division as well. I think that offense is kind of too good not to, especially if Eloy Jimenez just continues playing well. They've got a lot of big bats that are going to keep them in a lot of games. But that defense and that starting pitching for me, I'm still got a little bit of a spotlight on. I can't remember. I think the news about the playoff expansion came after our recording last week. So did your guys' 2 opinions change on the White Sox getting a playoff spot now that the playoffs are expanded a little bit?
I think for me a little bit, because it gives them a better chance to reach the playoffs now with a couple wild card spots being added. So their chances of making it to the playoffs increased just that much more. But they got to stay around 500 or slightly above 500, because baseball is telling you it's easy to make the playoffs. You just got to stay slightly above 500. Every second place team is going to make the playoffs. So if you can just stay right there, your chances increase. As we said for the White Sox, they have a golden opportunity. Minnesota is still number one, but you have to watch out for Cleveland. Cleveland, you saw what they did against Kansas City in their opening series. If they stay hot, it's going to be tough for them. But if you're the White Sox, you just have to worry about your business.
Yeah, look, I think they'll be right there for those next group of wild cards. I think, because like I said before, if Minnesota keeps doing what they're doing, and then they're going to be hard to slow down. They'll win. They'll be fine. And like I said, look, Cleveland's on a mission. This is probably their last chance to kind of make do with their core before they break up. So they're on a mission. And look, like if the White Sox can kind of stay right there at 500, like I've been saying, they could be right there for those other wild card spots. If not, they can just forget about it. And the White Sox fans will no doubt be very disappointed. Let's go up north to the other side of town. The Cubs, a nice showing against the Brewers. Got 2 out of 3 on Friday night. Kyle Hendricks pitched a gem, 4-hit shutout, complete game. I think sort of silencing folks that were not that kind of were questioning him getting the opening day start. He showed you why. The bats were really good. Darvish, not so much, and then middle of the road bullpen. But Tyler Chatwood probably had his best start as a Cub, I think, easily. Don't you think, Jason? So, what do you guys think of the Cubs' first 3 games? Jason, I'll start with you.
If I had to give it a grade, I'd give it a solid A. Only reason it's not an A+ was because it was a sweep, and I'm not. Just one game. You know how I like to pick on Darvish and sort of put a big spotlight on him as well. But I'm not overreacting to his performance in game 2. There was some defensive lapses there that led to some runs being scored as well. But again, the problem that I've always had with Darvish has been his efficiency. I think he threw like 75, 80 pitches in only 4 innings. And that's just not going to work. He's got to be more efficient with his pitches. Now, you saw him do that for the most part in the second half of last year, which is why I was so excited about him coming into this year, obviously before a pandemic hits and the season has been, altered in the way that it has. So I'm not going to get on him too much. Again, I think he pitched okay, but I would still like to see him be more efficient. That game just kind of got away from the Cubs. But Tyler Chatwood, best start as a Cub. What else can I say about it? 6 innings. I think 1 earned run. I think I had the line in my head, but I'm forgetting it now. I think only 1 or 2 walks, and you saw the potential of why the Cubs wanted to sign him a few years ago, right? Because he was sort of a guy that had this bill on him for having great stuff, but a little inconsistent as well. And of course, when he gets to Chicago, he's walking the entire roster, and that just wasn't a good look. But from what I've heard from Tommy Hatobi, and I think I'm pronouncing his name right, Cubs pitching coach, he's worked on a few things in the offseason, and he's just wanted to be better, and that's all you can ask for. And hopefully he can be a little consistent. I don't know how much he's going to start this year, but it was certainly a nice way to sort of get things started here in this shortened season, because it's going to be a sprint, and you beat 2 out of 3 you take 2 out of 3 from a team that has given the Cubs the business over the past couple of years, and psychologically, it's a good start.
For the Chicago Cubs, you have to be impressed by the offense. As we said, coming into the season, they have one of the best lineups in the National League. Led by Chris Bryant, Anthony Rizzo, Kyle Schwarber, Ian Happ, who had a big game on Sunday. You can go on and down the line. Friday's game, as I said, when Kyle Hendricks pitched against the White Sox, you had to be concerned a little bit, but let's not overreact. He bounced back and actually put the Cubs in position to win, in which they took advantage of. Saturday's game is a throwaway. It happens, but Sunday's game, they jumped out on the Brewers early, and they were able to hold them down. I'm with you, Jason. I'm concerned about the Bulls. We'll talk about them later and get on my nerves. But I'm concerned about the bullpen for the Chicago Cubs. Will they be able to hold up the end of the deal, especially if they get started pitching for that particular day's game? I don't know, but Tyler Chatwood, he did pitch well yesterday. It did help with the Cubs jumping out to that 5-0 lead, but we'll see if they can sustain this throughout the season. You got your first road series of the week coming up, of the season coming up at Cincinnati. I know Cincinnati fell flat on their faces to Detroit over the weekend, but we'll see how the Cubs do now on the road against another division opponent.
Yeah, and this is going to be probably the bane of Theo Epstein's existence, and for me, the sort of bullet point on what his legacy is based on here in Chicago. Obviously, he brought a World Series here, and that has, that holds enormous weight and value. But that bullpen for the Cubs has been their Achilles heel for going on 4 seasons now, and it's going to be a little hard to evaluate in a season like this because it's such a sprint and every game sort of matters. So to me, I feel like there's going to be a lot of overreaction one way or the other, whether they're doing well or not, because how do you properly evaluate it and prorate it over 162 games? You kind of can't, right? So it's for me, so far so good. I mean, I think that's just the best we could hope for. But again, if the games are close, yeah, they're as Cubs fans, you're going to be nervous, and there's going to be a lot of nail biters, and hopefully we can get a lot of those extended starts, 6 and 7 innings from the rotation. But quickly back to Kyle Hendricks. This was brewing for a few seasons now. It's not an overreaction as I say this. He has been establishing himself as one of the best pitchers in baseball. If I had to think about it now, I would probably have him right about number 6 or 5. I think I can name 4 or 5 pitchers ahead of him at this point in time if they're healthy and their game is on. But this has been coming. This has been coming for a long time. He is good. He has been really good. I believe he's only one of 2 or 3 pitchers to have a sub 3.5 ERA since 2016. And he's starting to show it. I see big things for Kyle Hendricks this year.
Oh yeah, I think so. I think he could probably be right there for a contender for the Cy Young. I think, like, again, if you want to put an asterisk on it, it's only 60 games, fine. But I think, look, he's capable, and look, he's worked his butt off to get to this level. And I think he'd be right there for the NL Cy Young. I think he's got a shot. I think he can, especially if the Cubs are really good and they could be right there in that division. I really think he can be.
I want to ask Jason a question before we move on. Are you able to get the Marquee Network on your cable system?
I am not. So I have YouTube TV, and they have not brokered a deal with them as of yet. So I'm watching the games, but I will not disclose how.
I know what you're talking about. We know what you're talking about, but leave that alone.
Hey, yeah, exactly. I don't know. I don't know who's listening. I don't know who's watching. I don't want to incriminate myself.
No, okay, but we won't. Okay,
yeah, we know.
No, we'll just keep it that way.
Yeah, just for disclosure, I'm doing the same thing, but we know what it is. We know.
Yeah. So, well, I mean, I will, I guess somewhat pat Comcast and Xfinity on the back for finally getting the deal done for their customers, but it's a little late. But yeah, so now we're just hoping on praying on hopefully YouTube TV can get something done here soon.
Okay, so all right, so there are no 3-0 teams. No one started 3-0, but there are about like a dozen teams that are 2-1. Who is impressed? I know it's only 3 games, 60-game season. At least so far, who has impressed you? I know it's a little early, but what are your early synopsis so far?
Well, for me, I had mentioned this earlier, and if Giancarlo Stanton and Aaron Judge can stay healthy for the New York Yankees, I mean, they're always sort of impressive. But this guy, he seems to Stanton, I'm talking about, he seems to be on a particular mission so far in this shortened 60-game season. He's hit 2 balls that I don't think personally have landed, and with no stands or no fans in the stands, I should say. You can hear the impact that much louder, and they sound like mini explosions. I mean, this guy is slimmed down, but he's not lost his power at all. And I was watching that at bat. I was watching the game the game first of all, but that at bat, that home run he hit off of Max Scherzer, that again, I just don't think the ball is still landed. It's still going somewhere. I just don't know where. And again, if those two guys can stay healthy, for the Yankees, they've got to be one of the favorites to come out of the American League.
Sid?
For me, I'll go with the Yankees as well. Is it a shoe-in that they'll make the World Series? No, but do they look good right now? Yes. Also, the Tampa Bay Rays, they took 2 out of 3 from Toronto. Also, out west, I'm looking at the Oakland A's. In the NL West, I'm looking at the Los Angeles Dodgers. I know they played the San Francisco Giants, but they did what they had to do against weaker opponents in that division. On paper, it looks like a cakewalk for them to win the NL West. Now, as we said before, we'll keep saying this until the season ends, but for the Dodgers, it's not about the regular season, it's all about the postseason.
Yeah, the Dodgers look real good. I know they split with the Giants, but look, I mean, they should be able to steamroll that NL West. The Cubs impressed me. They were able to pull out that win. Tyler Chatwood looked really good. Like I said yesterday, Atlanta. I mean, I think they're still hitting. I think they're still scoring as we speak. Even though I guess the Mets. I mean, my goodness, Jesus. But on the AL, I mean, look, Tampa Bay looks really good. I mean, like I said, Cleveland. Like I said, they're on a mission. The Yankees. They look really good. Baltimore. Well, I mean, we'll see where Baltimore is. I mean, we said before that weird things happened in this sort of a sprint, but they win 2 out of 3 against the Red Sox. But we'll see what they do. I know this is not going to be a popular thing to say, but I think the Astros, even though it looks like they've lost Verlander for the next few weeks with a forearm injury, so we'll see where that goes. But I mean, look. Again, we'll just have to wait and see, especially with what happened with the Marlins. I mean, the Marlins, they won 2 out of 3 before all this happened. So, again, this is all sort of like contingent on if they have to delay the season for a couple of weeks. But at least, so far it was nice having baseball. Now, before we move on from baseball, how did you guys like the set of some of these? Because I know the White Sox had cardboard cutouts. I know some stands were just empty, and I saw like a couple use like virtual fans. I know some people thought I thought it was cool, but the others thought it was a little bit weird. So, how do you guys like the setups of some of these ballparks?
Well, before I answer that question, I just want to give a couple of notices and observations as well. One, you mentioned Cleveland. Shane Bieber and Carlos Carrasco. By the way, congratulations to Carlos Carrasco, pitching for the first time in, I believe, almost 2 years, battling leukemia. His season debut, 10 Ks, 6 plus innings, I believe. Shane Bieber, another young fireballer, establishing himself as one of the best young pitchers in the game as well. Cleveland's got a ton of arm talent, and like you said, Lakeena, a little earlier, this might be their best last shot to maybe compete and get to a World Series. But again, I wanted to observe just those two, just outstanding performances this weekend. The Oakland A's and Matt Olson, dark horse MVP candidate. He hasn't been talked about. He's low on the national radar here the past couple of seasons, but this guy's a hell of a player. It's a walk-off grand slam in game 1, and I believe he went 3 for 4 yesterday with a couple of runs and RBIs. That guy is also really good. On the flip side of that, I am really concerned about Shohei Ohtani and the Angels. Ohtani couldn't record an out. All sorts of control issues. I mean, again, I don't want to be doom and gloom. I think he can work his way out of it. He obviously hasn't pitched in a long time as well, so I can understand that. But let's just hope it's not, a season-long trend, because it's just such a unique season. They can't afford, at least in my opinion, the Angels can't afford to sort of wait too long to see if the wheels can come back. If you're Joe Madden, how many starts do you give him, until you make a decision if he doesn't make some adjustments and his performances aren't better? So the A's, the Angels, and there was something else I wanted to mention. I'm probably forgetting, but that's okay. But back to the sort of the setup of these MLB stadiums, I also thought it was a little bit weird, Lakeena, the virtual fans thing. I mean, I think it looked cool optics wise, but the players couldn't see the virtual fans, right? It was just like merely for like camera
For TV
operation,
purposes,
right?
yep.
Basically.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I guess as for viewership, I guess, but yeah, I mean, it also kind of makes it look a little weird as well. I mean, I think it's cool to sort of have the on-field play, the audio enhanced a little bit. There's probably going to be a few hiccups along the way. You know, we had a few verbal scuffles here over the weekend in a couple of these games. Cubs and Brewers, of course, an example of that. But I think that is actually a little bit cool to sort of hear that advanced audio and see the stadium sort of, you know, pipe in these sort of recorded fan reactions to some of the things going on. So that's a little cool to see and hear. But I think overall, I mean, I think these stadiums have sort of done the best that they could, especially, you know, with fan cutouts and some of the funner things of that nature.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, Jason, with the fan cutouts, including, I know Wrigley Field didn't do it, but I know on the south side, the Sox, they did it. And of course, I think with them, along with all the other teams that have done it, the proceeds go to their charity, the team's charities of choice. With the virtual fans, as we talked about in Lakeena on our last podcast, that we know that Fox, they didn't do it for the whole game, but they did it for parts of it, from what I saw. But they continue to do this and people like it, assuming that the NFL season starts on time, they're going to try it in the NFL as well, because we all know all these sports, in particular college and pro football, they are presented in TV-style type form. They're presented as a TV show. And if it continues to work for baseball, Fox is going to try it for football. Will the other networks follow suit? We shall see.
It'll be, like I said, it like, you know, it was a little odd seeing cardboard cutouts of people that actually looked weirder to me than the virtual. So, because I knew what it was, but seeing like cardboard cutouts, I mean, Tim Anderson, you know, they had like cardboard cutouts of all the players' kids for the White Sox, and you know, had seen his little girls there was just a little bit creepy. I don't know why, it just looked a little odd seeing their kids there. But again, I guess that's just me and my like weirdness here. It's a Stephen King novel, but I mean, look, I mean, I'm sure people are going to be trying all time. I'm sure they're going to be trying all types of stuff. You know, we heard like the pumping crowd noise in some of these stadiums as well. I mean, look, this is going to be weird for people. You know, again, this is something that we're going to have to get used to, at least for the next, you know, for these next few months, for the rest of this year at least. So, I mean, we just a new world, unfortunately, if you know, quote unquote. Mm-hmm. All right, so where you guys want to go? You want to go NBA first, or you want to go NFL?
Round ball.
All right.
Yes, so let's go with some basketball.
All right.
Folks are in trouble.
Yeah, somewhat. Lou Williams, he went outside the bubble for a funeral. I mean, that part is true. We know that, you know, made his family member rest in peace. But then when he came back to the bubble, he admitted on Friday night that
he had no choice but to admit it.
Yeah, because apparently he was seen in Magic City, which if you're not from Atlanta, or if you don't know people from Atlanta, or if you don't live in Atlanta, that is a famous gentleman's club, if you will.
Watching them girls shake it fast.
And oh my gosh,
I'm trying to keep it clean for this broadcast, okay?
Oh, okay, fine. He admitted he went to the gentleman's club, and now he's being quarantined in a different area away from the bubble. He has to stay there for the next 10 days. And I mean, I heard like our buddy Kyle Means said that, well, maybe they should have had like, you know, strippers somewhere in the bubble, so maybe the people again, his words, not mine. I don't know. His words, not mine.
Hey, make it rain.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's just, I mean, they haven't had any positive tests. I think they've had like 2 positive tests, I think, since the last time they tested everybody. But so I mean, you know, Patrick Beverly, he's back in the bubble. So is Zion. But what do you guys think of Lou Will and his misadventures, if you will?
The man just wanted to get some wings. Okay, what's wrong with the man wanting to get some wings?
Sure, why not?
You know, look. I've heard. I don't know, but I've heard that Magic City has excellent food. Okay. I did so, and apparently he likes the wings. So what's wrong with the man going to get some wings?
As comedian Chris Rock once said, you go into those joints like that. I'm cleaning up here a little bit. You go into a joint like that, and all you eat is those tater tots.
Oh my God.
I'm just saying.
Apparently, man like wings. But no, look. This is such a bad look for him. Just such a bad look. I mean, just it really is. The optics aren't good for Mr. Lou Williams here, and so far, I think the NBA bubble has worked, right? I mean, I think generally it has been a positive thing. There hasn't been any spikes or upticks in positive cases or anything like that. So I believe it's worked as best as it can. But I mean, plain and simple, you can't have stuff like this. Can't have stuff like this happening. Not in the world of social media. Somebody, you're going to get caught. You're going to get seen. So I mean, it's affecting the Clippers. I mean, I think he might miss a game or two in the NBA restart, which is coming up in a couple of days here. So it's affecting the team, and those are the ramifications, at least for Lou Williams. That's who he has to explain his actions to.
As we said before, guys, the stories are going to be more off the court than on the court. If you listen to certain NBA superstars of the previous weeks, including Damian Lillard, a.k.a. Dame Dollar, as the kids will call him, from the Portland Trail Blazers, he said that you thought that everybody was going to be on their best behavior. You're crazy. And we saw a couple other players, including the one from the Houston Rockets, I believe, that had ordered takeout food, and he wasn't supposed to do that, so he got in trouble. Had to be quarantined for 10 days or so. I get it that you have a bunch of young players, 25 years or younger, the majority of them, and they're away from their girlfriends, wives, or both, so and they'll get antsy. So, but I think that hopefully I think that players, especially those young players, will take it more seriously, because the NBA is not playing. They are strict to their rules. And like you say, Jason, so far it has worked, but thing is, there hasn't really been an outbreak of the COVID-19 virus, or just players, majority of players misbehaving badly. Now, Kristaps Porzingis of the Dallas Mavericks and Paul Millsap of the Denver Nuggets, they had to be placed on a 10-day quarantine as well, because they missed a test session. So the NBA is strict here. They're not playing, and if you're a player, you do not, I repeat, do not want to be a reason why that your team is not successful due to your silly, selfish act.
Yeah, and real quick here, I mean, I hear you talking about the young players, Sydney, and that's a great point. But Lou Williams is a vet. There's no excuse.
Right, exactly.
No excuse for Lou Williams.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's one thing if the younger players do it, but come on, Lou, you're almost 30, so you're supposed to know better. And and like you just said, I mean, Porzingis and Millsap, they've had to take a couple of days in quarantine because they missed the testing. And look, the NBA is very serious, and I can see a lot of people are applauding Adam Silver for doing this, and for the Players Association and the owners for setting all this up and for doing this. I mean, there was actually been some pretty good basketball too, but like you said, like you guys have both said, I mean, it's going to be the stuff that's going to off the court. It's going to be doing a lot of. That's going to get more and more attention than what's going to be going on the court. I mean, the stuff going on the court will probably be like sort of, your typical mundane, they're playing basketball, yippee. But, I mean, and it's just that, like you said, look what was the first thing we talked about. Not the scrimmages, but the fact that, Lou Williams can love him some wings at Magic City. hey, whatever. But, and also, the kid from the Rockets,
Hopefully, Lakeena will get her audio situation under control. We couldn't hear her, but I just want to piggyback off this point, Jason. So hopefully, most of the players, I think they'll get it, but I think they'll be on their best behavior. I know Lou Williams has been shamed over this past 24 to 48 hours or so because, like you said, he was caught on social media. You really can't, not to get too far into this, but especially being in the position that these players are in, being celebrities and whatnot, you can't really get get away with anything anymore. Everybody's a quote unquote reporter because of your camera phone. Let's just say I did something. Somebody doesn't have a cell phone. The next person does. Oh, he did this. Click. So they can't really get away with anything, especially being inside that bubble.
Yeah. I mean, the spotlight is on these players, again, and this is a social media age, and everybody's got a camera, like you said, Sid, and these players have to be smart, especially these veterans. They're the ones that have to set the example for these younger players, because this is just such a unique situation, and guys like Lou Williams, they have to be leaders, and getting photographed at the gentleman's club is not a good look.
You guys hear me now?
Yeah, we got you back
Okay.
now.
Yeah, I don't know what happened.
If you want to finish up your
No, you
last
can finish
point
up.
before you
No,
cut it.
no, you can finish up your points, and now I'll follow.
No, we're good. We just wanted you to finish up your point before you cut out.
Oh, okay.
We were cut off.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there, but the scrimmages have actually been really good. I mean, if you see the stands, I mean, they kind of have like their bands are virtual too, but it doesn't look as weird or as creepy. This actually looks a little bit more realistic than it did in baseball. So that looked really good. I mean, the basketball's been really good too. I mean, LeBron looked really good. I mean, the Lakers look, J.R. Smith. I mean, it looked like he's kind of grown up a little bit. I mean, so what do you guys think of the basketball that's been going on down in Orlando so far?
Yeah. I mean, I can't wait for it to get back started. And again, I think first game here is on the 30th. So I think the quality of basketball has been great. Again, the NBA is the benchmark for how these sort of major pro sports leagues should have and are operating. So again, you can't have the sneaksters. We gotta try to minimize those cases, but as far as on the court, yeah, I mean the competition has looked good. Just saw he first came back, he struggled a little bit, but Russell Wilson rejoined the team, and he was part of the scrimmage. James Harden doing his thing yesterday as well. Luka Doncic, John Morant, Grizzlies and Mavericks played yesterday, so that was a pretty decent game. And yeah, I mean, again, I can't wait back to see these guys on the floor.
Yeah, you looking at these scrimmages a few minutes there. I had a chance to look at them. As you mentioned, Jason, a couple of the big time teams look good. Utah, Boston, Houston in particular. But the Lakers and the Clippers, they're not taking this as serious. I know LeBron James and Anthony Davis both were limited, restricted minutes wise. I know Anthony Davis got popped in the eye yesterday, so hopefully he's okay and ready to go as the restart begins later on this week. I'll just say this. I just hope, and I think they will get it as the restart begins. That the quality of basketball continues at a higher pace because these players have been off the last 3.5, 4 months. So the competition part, I think, will be fine. I just hope that nothing else, like you said, Jason, happens tragically, for lack of a better term, away from the court. Definitely not on. Hopefully, it doesn't happen on the court.
Yeah, like I said, it'll be. Look, if the Lou Williams thing is like being the worst thing that's happened during this whole thing, I think if you're the NBA, you'll take it.
Yeah, they can pat themselves on the back.
Right. So, exactly. So, anything else basketball wise you guys want to talk about before, unless you guys want to take a break?
Yeah, I just want, before we take our break, I want to just mention something about the WNBA real quick. Applaud them as far as their protests before the games over the weekend as they got started in their bubble. I know a few of the teams protested before the national anthem, with the Black Lives Matter movement. I know the Sky won their game on Sunday. Again, they got their revenge on the Las Vegas team from the playoffs the year before.
Yeah, the Aces.
So These WNBA players, things they cannot be ignored either. So I think also they're showing the way to peacefully protest, but also uh, focusing on their games at the same time. So people should take a look at them as well.
Yeah. Also, some coaching news. Looks like the Knicks and Tom Thibodeau are finalizing a deal. So that's some other news coming out of the NBA. I mean, knee-jerk reaction is Tom Thibodeau is a good coach, but it is a damn shame that Mark Jackson was not hired for this position. Damn shame, and I wonder why he hasn't had a job since leaving the Golden State Warriors, because he's one hell of a coach.
Sort of one of
I
those.
know most of.
So yeah, just one.
Yeah, go ahead, Lakeena.
No, you go ahead. You go ahead and finish.
I know, listening to New York sports radio over the last few weeks, I know many fans wanted Mark Jackson as their head coach. The former player who was drafted by his hometown team comes back home to coach the Knicks. But, the Knicks are in a lot of trouble. The only thing that I'm worried about, when we saw what happened here in Chicago, Tibbs wanted more control, more power over the roster. He got that in Minnesota, went to the playoffs right away, but the following year, it all fell apart and he was gone. So I wonder, even though you had a veteran GM in place with the Knicks, and Leon Rose is the new president now, I wonder how much say will Tom Thibodeau really have with this roster. It's a young roster. You have coming off his rookie year, J.R. Barrett. You have Mitchell Robinson. So outside of those two young pieces, what do you really have? I know he has a former Bull, Taj Gibson on that roster, but outside of that, you really don't have much. I wonder how much power that Tibbs has as far as roster control is concerned. Even though you have a GM in there, how much say does he really have over this roster? That's just my concern, because it's going to take a couple of years.
And will the Knicks fans be patient with that? And I think that's,
exactly.
He ran guys to the ground here, and I think that's the same thing ended up happening in Minnesota. That's why things, went off the rails quickly up there. And we'll see what happens in New York. You have a much bigger microscope, and the media will be very merciless. So if something happens, if someone tears their ACL or, tears their Achilles, I mean, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be saying, why didn't you just let Mark Jackson? And that's another question I think people are going to be wondering, like, why hasn't Mark Jackson gotten himself another job since, being let go with the Warriors? Sort of one of those things where we're still trying to figure that out. All right, we're going to take a quick break, and when we convene, hopefully our surprise guest will show up. Hopefully he does.
Hopefully.
But if not, listen, there was a big trade that happened in the NFL yesterday. We'll have our thoughts on that, and also and all other NFL stuff, and also college football, and whether or not they'll be able to, get going here in these, this next month. So we'll be right back. Second City Sports Zoom style.
Zoom style.
All right. Well, we convene right after this. Stay tuned. All right, folks, we're back. Welcome back to Second City Sports Zoom style.
Zoom style.
I love that in unison. See, we still got it. Okay. Once again, I'm Lakeena McGee. You can follow me at Keena McGee on Twitter and at Keena_McGee on the Instagram.
I'm Sid the Kid. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at SidKid80. Once again, at SidKid80, SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
I'm Jay Pfeiffer, and you can follow me at Truth and Reason _ on the Twitter, and you can follow the show's Twitter handle at 2NDCSCHI.
All right, so still got a lot to do on this part 2 of this edition, but let's start with the NFL. A big trade that came down the pike over the weekend. Jamal Adams, the talented safety for the Jets, is now a Seattle Seahawk. First, we talked about this, weeks ago, that he wasn't very happy there. He wanted to get out of New York. He wanted to go to either his hometown of Dallas, play for the Cowboys, and then I think also Baltimore. He was saying as well, but instead he ends up going to the Pacific Northwest, going to the Seahawks. The Jets get 2 first-rounders and a second-rounder for the next couple of years, and I think they got another player too, but the Jets got a
Yeah,
pretty good,
McDougal.
yeah, a really good safety as well in his own right, one of the rising stars there. So guys, you know, how do you think? What do you think about how all this transpired with Adams?
Go ahead, Sid.
I'm gonna take a different angle with this one. He pulled a LeBron James. He recognized his value. He did pull an Antonio Brown to a lesser extent, but he whined and cried. I'm not begrudging for players getting paid, especially in the NFL. As we talked about before, Lakeena, he did it a year early with 2 years remaining on his contract. He thought he could excuse the expression, buck the system, but the Jets were, business-wise, they were correct to say no. We'll talk around this time next year. Of course, now you're hearing him talking to fans via his Instagram page. Probably I want to play for my hometown team. And then you heard these comments about head coach Adam Gase. Whether they're true or not, it remains to be seen. But you dogging your head coach, having Twitter beefs with now ex-teammate Le'Veon Bell over the weekend. So he did what he could to get out of there. Of course, hats off to him. He was successful at it. He got what he wanted. Now back to on the field, with him joining the Seahawks. Call me crazy, it puts them at the best chance to win the NFC West, or perhaps to get to the Super Bowl. They were a heartbeat away of beating Green Bay on the road last year to play San Francisco in the NFC title game. It makes them the favorite to win the NFC West and perhaps be a top 2, top 3 team representing the NFC in the Super Bowl this year in Tampa.
Yeah, so I think this trade could probably end up being won by both teams if that's possible. Jamal Adams was no longer happy with the Jets. I mean, that was pretty obvious in recent weeks with his comments about the general manager and the head coach. You know, if you can look at it as him playing his cards right, I mean, in that respect, I mean, it got him the result he wanted. So I don't think it's the right way to go. I just don't think you talk about your organization in that manner. You know, you can have your opinions and voice those opinions, but I think there's a way to do it. I don't personally believe that was the right way to do it. But again, I mean, the results are the results. He got what he wanted, right? And he's playing for, like you said, Sydney, a Super Bowl contender, but you still got to win the division first, right? You're still going to have the San Francisco 49ers and the LA Rams. We'll see how they bounce back from their season last year. But and a much improved Arizona Cardinals team. It's going to be tough out there in the NFC West. But and then you're still going to have to, you know, maybe see if you can extend him in the future, right? Because he wants to get paid like a linebacker. And I just don't know if that's going to happen. Although he, you know, if you look at the inside numbers, he in the Jet system, he played a lot of snaps at the linebacker spot. But again, I just don't know if he's going to get paid almost $20 million a year. I just don't know if he's going to do that. But I think he will be successful in the Seattle Seahawks system because they're in a win now mode, and it's the system that they run there defensively is a little bit more suited for Jamal Adams' talents. It allow him to be near the ball, to make plays on the ball a little bit more. So again, I think this trade has probably been won by both teams. Now it's a lot to give up. The Seattle Seahawks did. So again, I think the Jets can get a plus in that respect, but they had to give up a hell of a player to do it.
Yeah, look, I mean, he was much heralded coming out of LSU. I mean, he famously said that, I would die on the field. Now, of course, looking back on it, especially in these times, he probably don't want to say something like that now. But look, I mean, he played his cards. You know, he got what he wanted. He got out of there, and they didn't. And listen, to Joe Douglas, still the GM there, to his credit, they didn't want this to be a distraction, and this was going to be a distraction. So, on top of everything else that's been going on too. So, look, I mean, this helps the Seahawks. You know, they're definitely one of the favorites. You know, like you said, Jason. I mean, that West is loaded. That NFC West is loaded. So I hear people say, well, you know, they're going to be, you know, the top. They're the team to beat, and you know, they're going to go to the Super Bowl. Look,
Yeah, hold your horses on that.
Yeah, San Francisco's gonna have a lot to say about that. The Rams gonna have a lot to say about that. I know they've had to shred some player, but they still got a lot of good players there. We'll see where Arizona is. They're much improved. Look, I doubt they'll be contending for the division crown, but I think they'll be right there for one of the wild card spots. As for the Jets, I mean, look, they've now got assets now. They've now got multiple draft picks. So again, they may have to change coaches. But just saying. But I mean, look, I mean, this could be one of those trades that, and it's rare, but this could be one of those trades that's won by both teams, both sides.
Yeah, for the New York Jets, like I've been saying, Sam Darnold's your franchise quarterback. You have to find out if he's the guy going forward. He's shown promise over his first 2 years, and I know he missed almost close to half the season last year. But you got to find out if he's the guy going forward. If he's the guy going forward, you still have to rebuild that offensive line. Their defense is okay, but you got to rebuild there. And you got to get a number one wide receiver to go with Sam Darnold. They haven't had a number one wide receiver since, I'm just guessing out of my top of my head, Brandon Marshall. He was there for a couple of years, and they couldn't get it done. Your true number one franchise wide receiver was Keyshawn Johnson, and that was almost 25 years ago.
Yeah. I mean, the Jets have a lot more problems than just Jamal Adams. And like you said, Sydney, he was going to be a headache and a distraction this upcoming season. So I think they had to do what was best for their organization. And again, I mean, I just keep coming back to this. Joe Douglas is not the previous regime. So, he's got a shot to really make an impact with these draft picks coming up, because the Jets have not had any luck with first round and number one picks in recent years past. But again, new regime, you've got a new head guy there. So we'll see how Mr. Douglas does. But yeah, I'm also with you, Lakeena. It might be time to move on from Mr. Adam Gase as well, because it boggles me that he's even a head coach at this point anyway.
Yeah, I mean, look, we'll see what happens with that, especially if they're go off to a bad start, and they probably will be. And I just think that at this point they may have to maybe say goodbye to him. Who knows? But look, I mean, at least the Jets looks like they're looking into the future now. I'm sure they're going to try and see if they can win that AFC East, especially with the Patriots not really being the Patriots anymore. But again, I mean, they may have to clean house and start over from scratch again. We'll just have to wait and see. All right, the Bears, keeping it locally here, the Bears have signed all 7 of their draft picks, and they're down to only 13 tight ends. Trading away Adam Shaheen and Ben Barniker. Okay, what do you guys think of everything that has transpired from the Bears this past weekend? They kind of did it kind of quietly, but they got rid of some of their tight ends, Adam Shaheen and Ben Barniker. Look, these are Ivy League kids, so he'll be just fine. I think he's gonna be like a doctor or something, so he's gonna be just fine. But he's not in Miami, so what do you guys think of what happened with the Bears?
Yeah, I mean, under the radar moves for sure, but they cleared I believe 1.3 million in cap space with those moves, so that's gonna help a little bit to get that off the books. Listen, Adam Shaheen was a disappointment. I mean, there's no other way to put it, really. I think he may have had a little too much expectations put on him coming out of college, but again, he was expected to make some plays here, and he just didn't. Had some injuries that he dealt with as well. Wasn't fully healthy all the time, so time to move on. And this is the nature of the NFL. This is the business. I think we all sort of saw this coming at a certain point, because like you said, Lakeena, they've got an entire roster full of tight ends. So it really, most of these guys are not going to be in a Bears uniform this upcoming season. Not surprising in that respect at all. And again, it moves some money off the books. So that's always a positive there.
This gives another reason for Bear fans to gather up and throw some rocks at GM Ryan Pace. I know he's famous for getting reaches out of small colleges. Now, some of them have worked out, like Tariq Cohen, and this is the one that didn't work out. So Shaheen gets a new start in Miami. We'll see what happens. He's on his last as far as trying to become a consistent NFL player. I don't know the status of Dre Burton. I'm assuming he's still on the roster. I'm surprised they didn't release him yet, if that's the case. But
I actually think they
this
have already, Sid. I think.
They
they
did.
did.
I think they did.
They
Yeah.
did.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. Now this is all about their first round draft pick, Cole Kmet, who they selected out of Notre Dame. So uh, they expect big things out of him, and we'll see what happens. But like you said, Jason, this is really uh, it's about a small salary dump. Like you said, they saved over almost over $1.5 million. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's gonna be very interesting though to see what the Jets decide to do. Do they try to maybe go for it, or do they just say, you know what, let's just pull it back and just let's wait and see how it all goes, and maybe they'll probably have to eventually they'll have to start over, but we'll see. It's gonna be very interesting.
I
Um,
agree.
all
So,
right.
one question that I wanted to ask you guys is, and I sort of give a weekly update on a podcast that I do, the Go Route, as you guys know, with our good friend Derek Tate. But where is your sort of NFL meter, 1 to 10 scale, as far as possibly getting a season in? I know we talked a little bit about it last week, but has it changed? Has it gone up? Has it gone down within the past week? Because we're still not seeing a whole lot of plans being put out there by the NFL. I know they had a few mandates and sort of policies that they released last week, but there really still isn't anything solid and mandatory that the NFL has said yet. So where are you guys as far as getting the season started?
I'm still pretty hopeful that the season will start on time now, due to the fact that they have canceled the entire preseason. Like you mentioned, Lakeena, in our first segment, the players' union and the owners agreed to the protocols over the weekend. And so these things that these players and these coaches and other staff members will have to do, it will take time. And I don't think they would have had the time to do that and be prepared from 4 preseason games down to 2 at the time. So it would have been strange there. So this with these new protocols that we know of already, these will give staff members and players and coaches time to adjust. Now, heaven forbid something happens going on the other side, then they'll move the season to perhaps October or what have you. Hopefully, it doesn't get to that point, but I'm still pretty confident. And I've been saying this all along since NFL had time on this side. I think as of right now, I'm still pretty confident and hopeful that the season will start on time.
Yeah, look, I'm at kind of like an 8 or 9, which I've always been there. I mean, like we've been saying, Sid, that this, the one thing that the NFL's always had on their side is time. And look, I mean, there's already been one player that said he's gonna sit out now with good reason. I mean, he's a doctor, Lawrence DeVerney Tardif, I think that's his name. He's
Yep.
probably one of the most talented linebacker, offensive lineman, but he's also a doctor in Canada. And he said, "Look, I'm paraphrasing what he said, but he posted on his Instagram that, look, I can in good conscience play, and the safety and everything. And I'm look, he's I'm sure he's seen a lot what's been going on up in Canada. They've been able to kind of contain it up there. I don't know if we'll see if we see it here with the NFL players. I don't know, but at least so far they seem to be comprehensive testing, daily testing, and no preseason games. I mean, that's a bummer for some of the later round guys or practice squad guys, but it's something they had to do to sort of see what happens in case things go haywire again. And it just all came across the wires that a trainer for the Vikings who's supposed to be doing the infection control, he now has the virus. So that's another sort of blip in here. And I mean, look, Kevin Harlan, and I think a lot of people looked at him, said it was crazy for what he said, that they may just shorten the season and then just let him do divisional games. I don't see that happening, but again, we're not doom and gloom here, but I think we got to be realistic. And again, we'll see what the NFL does. I mean, I'm sure there's not going to be fans. They're going to be pumping in, the network's probably going to be pumping in crowd noise. You may see virtual fans in some of these newer stadiums. So I mean, it'll be interesting to see what the NFL does. I mean, I'm sure they're going to see what baseball does, but I think they need to call, and maybe they probably need to call the soccer people to see what they've been able to do.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. And again, the concern for me is just the lack of communication from the NFL. I mean, like you guys said, they've had time, and the fact that they're not, more forthcoming with plans and things of that nature and policies and mandates, even more so than they have been, is just a little concerning for me. And my scale has been about a 5 or a 6. I mean, I really, I'm not trying to be pessimistic about it, but I think I'm trying to think of it through the mind of a player. And players need reassurances, and they just haven't gotten a lot of those in recent weeks and months. So unless things dramatically start changing within the next few weeks here, and I'm not saying that they can't, but we're in training camp mode now, people. We're in training camp mode. We would be in preseason mode within the next 2 to 3 weeks here. So the NFL has got to get on the ball here and start reassuring these players and these teams. Otherwise, I think maybe a game or 2 or 3 or 4 could be in jeopardy.
Yeah, I mean, look, like I said before, it's going to be interesting though. I mean, you look at, I think the last test I think they have for the whole league, I think 6 players they've been put on the reserve COVID list, because apparently at least a few of those 6 have tested positive. Now that they've actually have asked players that if they attend like high, I guess, like events, I guess, like, where there's a lot of people, they're not gonna get paid. So they're kind of been trying to kind of like do like the NBA's doing, but without necessarily putting them on a bubble, because I don't think they'll be able to do that in the NFL with all how big the rosters are and and everything. But look, it's good. Look, it's gonna be interesting to see what the NFL does if they have to do anything. I'm sure. Look, Roger Goodell and the Players Association and everyone else, they've been keeping their noses and their ears to the grindstone. And again, we'll see what happens. Like I said, it's gonna get very interesting, because I just think that at this point, look, I mean, timing and everything else, we'll see.
Yeah, we're less than a month and a half away from the season opener between the Chiefs and the Texans on September 10th. And as of this podcast, recording this podcast, the players already reported to training camp, so they're getting ready to go through protocol as far as testing and safety issues are concerned. If you're the NFL, you better pay attention to what baseball is doing right now, handling this situation with not only with the Cincinnati Reds, but with the Miami Marlins as well, so you won't make the same mistake.
How do you guys think everything's going to kind of set up with the teams and everything? The preseason, I think it's going to be 80 players per roster right now to start the camp. So I'm kind of wondering, like we've been saying, how normal is everything going to be? I mean, you're going to have practices, you're going to have like guys sanitizing each other. You're probably going to have to have everyone's going to have to wear a mask. I'm sure you can't have your mask off. And you probably have to keep Lysol and hand sanitizer like everywhere. I mean, we all saw what Anthony Rizzo did, in the Brewers series, keeping, having hand sanitizer in his pocket. So again, this might be something that we're probably going to get used to seeing.
Yeah, I mean, it's such uncharted territory, right? I mean, and again, I don't. How much do the players know? Again, about these protocols? Is it league-wide mandated? I don't know these things. I wonder if the players know. Is it league-wide, sort of these safety protocols, or is it team mandated? I mean, do you guys know? Have you heard anything about as far as, cleanliness and safety protocols during some of these camps opening up? Again, for me, it's about reassurances and what these players know as opposed to what they don't know.
As far as we know right now, players will get tested every day. If there's a 5% or above test rate, they'll continue to test every day. If it goes below 5%, they'll test the players every other day. That's what we know right now. But we were discussing this for the last couple of weeks, Lakeena, that everybody's won't be in the building. I'm sure you're going to have the offensive players on the field with the coaches during a period of time. You have the special teams down on the field for a period of time. the defensive unit out on the field for a period of time. And I don't think you're going to have any meeting. Everybody's not going to be in one room at the same time, break it down. You got to continue to do Zoom calls and Zoom meetings as far as getting ready for the games, and because you can't sit in the film rooms this year, so you have to do it via Zoom. Everybody's not going to be in the building on the one room at once.
Also the sidelines too. Like we talked with our good buddy Mark Grody about it last week. Is he going to be allowed to be on the sidelines? Is anybody going to be allowed to be on the sidelines? And they have to do like the 6 feet thing, like those long microphones that they be using. If you look at the NASCAR, well, actually all the auto racing events, not just NASCAR, but I think NHRA, they do it. And I believe Formula One, they do it as well. They do like the long boom mics, like in the front to sort of like keep it apart. So again, I mean, are we going to be seeing that? Are we going to be having sideline reporters? How many of them are going to be allowed there? Is it going to just be the local people? Is it going to be the national people or the radio folks? I mean, look, a lot of this, they're going to have to think about a lot of this stuff because, are they going to have to wear masks too? I mean, it's all very, sort of weird, everything's been going on.
Yeah, you bring up a good point, Lakeena. Not just the players on the sidelines, the photographers, those people from NFL Films, the local TV stations from the 2 teams that are playing. They have cameramen and reporters as well. So I'm sure not everyone's going to be on the sidelines. What's going to be a limited travel? Will those reporters from those TV stations from the teams that they cover, will they be allowed to even travel, or will they be watching back at home and just watching the news conferences via Zoom? So we all know this, that the days of the reporters scrambling around the players in the locker room, those days are done. They may be done for good after we come out of this pandemic, but like you said, Lakeena, will sideline reporters be on the sidelines, or will they be in a separate booth, or will they be? I can't see how they can report if they're in another city, but if you're not there at the stadium, you really don't have much to report. And will they even have sideline reporters at all?
Yeah, I mean, couldn't agree more, guys. It's not just about the players. It's about the coaches and the staff and the production crews and everybody else involved in making sure these broadcasts are put on, So it's again, I hate to keep saying it, but we've had to in recent weeks and months. It's just such uncharted territory. It's going to be interesting to see how they handle it.
All right, let's talk a little college football for a second, guys. I mean, as I mentioned earlier, last week, both Rutgers and Michigan State have had their entire teams had to be quarantined because some of their players and personnel, they've tested positive. We got Missouri and Oklahoma, sort of an old like Big 8/Big 12 game. They've actually moved it up a week earlier to I think the 25th of August, if I'm not mistaken, to start their season. So it looks like for them, but then the NCAA is sort of dragging their feet, saying that, well, we're not sure what we're going to do with our fall sports, so we're going to wait another 2 weeks. Okay. The 29th, I should say that's Sooners Missouri State game. It's Missouri State game, I should say. So that's Missouri State's FCS. So, now they've moved back to the August 29th. And now, of course, this NCAA, they're dragging their feet again, saying, well, we'll wait another 2 weeks before we decide what we're going to do with their fall sports and their fall scheduling. So I know you guys will have a lot to say about this, especially you, Jason. I'll start with you. What do you think?
Well, I mean, what else can I say about the NCAA and their lack of action? I mean, I hate to sound redundant and beating a dead horse here, but they've shown time and time again that they are inept when it comes to certain actions and how their sports are run, basically. And there is no clear-cut head leadership as far as NCAA football is concerned. And for some reason, they seem to be more reactive than proactive. This is a term that I've used, again, more times than I would like to count in recent weeks. NCAA football is no different in that respect. I think there's still going to be a season, but again, they're leaving it up to teams as far as to handle, this pandemic. And I just, I don't know if that's the right way to go. These teams and conferences, they're just basically leaving it up to them. And I just don't know if that's the right way to go because, again, we're coming up on opening weekend in a month, in 4 weeks here. So I mean, it looks like there's probably going to be a season, sure, but I mean, I liken it to the NFL because there's just a lack of leadership and a lack of clear cut direction that they're going in.
As I've been saying to you, Lakeena, all along, I was confident that the college football season would happen. I thought they'll perhaps start on time. I'm not so sure about that now in terms of them starting on time. We will have a season, but starting on time on August 29th, I don't know if that's such a good idea, especially now you look at the Big Ten. They're going to a conference-only schedule. We haven't heard anything about the games and the dates and the times yet. But they're going to a conference-only schedule. You're looking at the Pac-12, they're going to an exclusive conference schedule. I think they'll probably start in mid-September as well. So let's see if the SEC and the other power conferences will fall in line. I think they'll probably be the best idea anyway going forward. And like you always said, Lakeena, in these last few weeks, we'll see what these secondary schools do because they're being impacted as well.
Yeah, I mean, look, we've been talking about some of the various conferences in the FCS. They've said that they're gonna, push back, their fall scheduling and look, I mean, the money is the root of it here, and unfortunately, with a lot of these FCS schools not being able to play some of these big time schools this year, it's gonna put some of their athletic departments in peril because they get paid 6 figures, in some cases 7 figures, because that covers their budget for this year, or at least most of it. So, and
that's a great point, Lakeena. Great point.
Yeah. I mean, Division 2, 3, the NAIA. We'll see. I haven't heard anything about the NAIA yet, but we'll see what they do. But like I've been saying, I mean, it's going to be, Jesus. I mean, I feel the same way you do, Jason. I'm kind of ambivalent here. The fact that the NCAA hasn't really said anything, they've been kind of leaving it up to the conferences. I know they've lost money. They've lost a lot of money as NCAA has, with no March Madness, with no College World Series, but both the men and the women, none of their spring championships were able to materialize. That's a big, those sports have become a big money makers for them in recent years, especially with the ESPN TV contract that they got. So they've lost a lot of money. And I'm thinking that money's kind of been sort of the movable part here. And, something's going to have to give with the NCAA. I mean, they're going to have to come out and say, look, okay, you want to do spring season, fine. If you want to do all conference schedule only this year, fine. But again, FCS, if you want to push back to spring so you'll have the full football supply to yourselves, fine. But something's got to give here. And to wait, let's wait another 2 weeks when you got some teams that have already had to kind of either cancel practice or had to put the whole team in quarantine. So I don't know where's the leadership is with the NCAA. I think, they think that, the whole like non-disclosure agreements with, likeness and stuff like that, but this is a little bit bigger right now than that.
And there are a lot more moving parts, right? I mean, there's a lot of teams in the NFL, right? 32 teams, but there's that much more in the NCAA. I mean, we're talking about hundreds of programs here. Again, from Power 5 all the way down to FCS Division 2 and 3. We're talking about hundreds of programs here and thousands of kids that are being affected by it. And it's even more reason to have clear-cut leadership at the head of the NCAA, and they don't have it. And again, it's the wrong move to just leave it up to the conferences to, quote-unquote, fend for themselves.
Also, too, I think another issue that comes down to is money as far as what kind of testing kits can the NCAA afford. And it's a big disparity between the big power schools and the middle-sized schools. Can you afford to test these players every day or every other day? And I think that's a issue that people are not talking about.
Another thing are they gonna sign on? Are they gonna sign on with somebody to probably get those test kits to not only the big schools who will be able to afford it, but also the lower tier schools they're probably not gonna be able to afford it. So again, this is where the leadership or lack thereof is happening here with the NCAA. And I just don't know, like, what's the end game here? What are they hoping to accomplish? But again, we'll see. I mean, the whole thing is just crazy at this point.
Couldn't agree more.
Okay. Anything else that you guys want to talk about? We still got some time. We got a lot of time here. So anything else? What's on you guys' mind?
Well, I wanted to go back to some NFL little news and notes here. I don't know if I'm pretty sure you guys have seen this at this point, but Alex Smith has been officially cleared for full contact. So I just want to applaud him first of all for even making a comeback after such a gruesome injury. I know. It's we don't want to think about it, but I mean it happened. But again, I just want to applaud him for making his comeback. I don't think he'll ever be able to play again. But what did you guys think? I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on the situation.
I hope that he plays again because of that horrific injury. I saw a couple of clips that he was rehabbing very well. Now, it doesn't mean that he's going to play this year. I doubt it, but I'm rooting for him personally. But even if he doesn't play football again, hopefully he just have his health and walk again, period, just for the rest of his life.
That photo with that knee injury, what happened to his leg right before he had surgery, and the fact that he almost lost it.
Yeah.
That the fact that he was able to not only rehab, is be able to bounce back from it. Now, like you guys said, I mean, will he be able to play this year? I doubt it. I mean, could he play next year? We'll see. I mean, we know how good of a player he is, and again, look, we'll see. Look, I'm gonna be rooting for him. To if he can get back out there and play at a high level, look, more power to him, because that injury was really gruesome. If you saw, I'm sure you guys, who are going to be listening to this and watching this, I'm sure you guys saw the replays of it. You saw the photos of his knee before he had surgery. So the fact that he's even walking is an accomplishment. So I'm glad that he's taking these baby steps. We'll see if next season, a team takes a chance on him. All it takes is one. So we'll be cheering for Mr. Smith, and hopefully we'll see him on the field.
Yeah.
Also,
go ahead, Sid.
Jason.
No, go ahead, Sid.
Okay. I just want to say, I think we said it in our last podcast, Lakeena, but speaking of that Washington football franchise, we'd like to say congratulations to Julie Donaldson, friend of the show. Now she's the vice president of media relations for the football team. She'll become the first female broadcaster to be part of an NFL radio game day coverage.
Yeah, congratulations to her, and again, friend of the show. It's just I feel a little famous vicariously through.
Yeah. We all do.
Yes.
To her once, but no, absolutely. In all seriousness, though, congratulations to her. Big time hire, and I don't want to take that opportunity to say anything negative about the Washington franchise, because I mean I think it's reactionary as well a little bit, but I'll digress. I want to more so congratulate her on acquiring that position.
All right. So what do you guys think about some of this other stuff that's been going on with the social injustice? I know you haven't had a chance to really comment on it, Jason. See what, some of these teams, especially on the college side, we saw with Chuba Hubbard from Oklahoma State. We saw with Kylan Hill, who got the key to the city, who's from Mississippi State, who was from Columbus, Mississippi, came out and said, look, I'm not going to set foot on that campus until you guys get rid of that Confederate flag. They've done that. Last week, he got the key to the city. Marvin Wilson, who is one of the top linebackers in the country from Florida State, calling out his new coach, Mike Norvell, saying, look, you didn't say anything to us about George Floyd. And, thankfully he's actually been able to talk to some of his guys. And, seeing some of these, the players, we saw it on not just football, but also basketball. We've seen the protests and also the coaches. So, Jason, since you haven't had a chance to really talk about it, what do you think about all this stuff that with athletes being more involved in the social injustices?
Well, it's hugely necessary in this day and age and times that we live in. 20, 25, 30 years ago, I can understand why a lot of high profile athletes did not do more things like that. It just probably more so wasn't something on their radar to do. But this is a different day and age, and I think it's again, I use the word necessary because I think it's the right word to use. The, there has to be a voice for a lot of the voiceless, and these athletes can be that voice. They can use that platform to speak for those who can't always or don't always speak for themselves. And um, I like the fact that it hasn't just been Black people that have been behind this movement. You're actually starting to see it across sports and across the world. A lot of support for that. So that is something uh, that gives me a little bit of hope, because that is also needed. It can't just be us talking about it. It can't just be us during the protest. It can't just be us on the forefront of this thing. Um, to be quite frank about it, we have to have white and our other fellow brown people behind us, because we're not gonna get anywhere if we don't. Um, it I also thought what LeBron James said something so poignant the other day, that this is not just a movement. This is a lifestyle. This is something that um, that has been important to us for years, for decades, for centuries. And it's not just a one-off thing for Black people. This is something that is every day, every minute, every second of lifestyle for some of us. So um, I, I think there could be more done from some of these leagues to support these movements, but I won't take up a whole lot of time talking about that. But I think there are certain right steps that are being taken. So that is a positive, and that is something that we can look forward to and continue to look forward to.
As I said before, change takes time. Nothing happens overnight, good and bad. I just want to say that many of our media colleagues and people that we watch and listen to, everybody, including us, was talking about the murder of George Floyd, and rightfully so, because we didn't have any distractions going on. Last Dance was over with. There was no music artists with new music coming out being blasted all over the media. We didn't have Hollywood throwing some new movie at us to go see in theaters for that weekend, because everything has been shut down. So everybody has been forced to deal with this and talk about it. I want to see how many of those media personalities, both TV and radio, during these weeks and months ahead, will you still be talking about this, because it's popular, it's hot on the heat right now? Or will you be talking about this after the November election of our U.S. president, whether it be a re-election or a new guy in office? Will you be talking about this around Christmas time? Will you be talking about this once 2021 gets here? Will you be talking about this at this point next summer, next year? So this is what, well, I'm waiting to see. Will this movement keep going in the right direction? The players are going to speak out about it, no doubt. But I want to see other media personalities, especially the ones that don't look like us, will you continue to put out this message? It doesn't have to be every day, but can you give it a mention? Will you still be doing stories or features about this? I'm waiting to see how that happens. It's easy to jump on the bandwagon right now because you don't want to be the one being called out. Yes, some people are going to do it because it's trendy, but I want to see how many people will stand once this blows over. Excuse my French, but we all know that George Floyd, of course, it's still not the number one news right now, but will it still be in America's conscience outside these athletes, particularly after the November election? Once we get into January, February of next year, and months and perhaps years going forward, where people that normally don't talk about this stuff, will they still be talking about it? It's easy to do right now, but will it be doing it in the weeks, months, and perhaps years ahead?
Yeah, I'm with you guys. I think, look, is this, like I said, voting is the key here. Are you,
Mm-hmm.
are going to be voting this November. You'll be able to look here in Illinois where we live. You're going to be able to do mail-in ballots if you want. We also have early voting. So I want people to sort of like make sure that's where it all starts. It all starts locally. And you can't bitch about change unless you are willing to help make the change. And you can't belittle somebody just to uplift yourself. I'm talking to you, Deshaun Jackson and Steven Jackson, and the rest of you knuckleheads that feel like you should discriminate against Jewish people to try to lift your people up. You can't do that.
Because boy, that is one of the dumbest, most ill-timed, knuckleheadish moves I've ever seen in my life. And I guess I hadn't got a chance to talk about that yet with you guys, but I think the Eagles should have cut Deshaun Jackson. I definitely think they should have, because it is just so wrong. It is so wrong on so many levels. There's no excuse for it, in my opinion. I mean, there's no excuse for him saying what he said and attributing it to a guy that was one of the worst human beings to ever walk the face of the planet. It's just wrong. It's just wrong on so many levels, and I couldn't believe it when the story broke. And again, I don't necessarily want to see this happen, but I think Deshaun Jackson needs to be taught a hard lesson here.
Wow. Yeah. Look, he's going to Auschwitz, or at least I think he talked to someone who was in Auschwitz when he was really young. So hopefully, I think like we were saying, like education and also nuance. I think that's what we want, especially in these times, because I think you saw what happened. You saw what happened in some of these ballparks. I mean, a lot of guys kneeled. So, let's see if we see more. We'll see what the leagues do. We'll see in terms of diversity and whatnot. We'll see if. I know some schools have already said that they're going to give their students a day off, and I know like some teams have already said they're going to give their players days off. When the election rolls around in November, so we'll see what happens. I mean, like I said, like we've been saying, any nuance, and that's what you want.
Yeah, it's easy to talk the talk, but can you walk the walk? It's easy to post something on social media, but put action behind those words. We all have to do that.
Yep. All right, Raheem Mostert, who's the talented running back for the 49ers, just got an extra raise. They reworked his contract. He's not going to get an extra $250,000.
Yeah.
Congrats to him. He had a great season last year. He had a great NFC Championship game last year against the Packers. He didn't have a great Super Bowl, but he was not the reason why they lost. So I know there was rumors about that he was trying to request a trade, but he got what he wanted, and congrats to him. So San Francisco's going to need him this year, but they're also going to need that quarterback to step up, and which leads into that head coach Mike Shanahan, Kyle Shanahan. Sorry. So it all starts with the head coach. We'll see what happens now that you're not longer the hunters, you're the hunted.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I mean, you guys hit on all the points I wanted to hit on. So, yeah, absolutely. Congratulations to him.
That NFC West is going to be stellar this year top to bottom.
That NFC West may be the toughest in the league. I mean, the NFC South is going to be pretty tough. I know that. Let's see. I'm trying to think of. Yeah, I mean, that NFC West is going to be a gauntlet. What do you guys think about that? Just really quick.
Oh, it's gonna be a dogfight. Listen, that's good. It's gonna come down to, it's gonna, like I said, it might come down to the final games of the season within the division. I mean, look, from top to, I know we talked about it a few minutes ago, but I know a lot of people want Jamal Adams. Like they think that takes the Seattle over the top, but those other three teams, especially even Arizona, I think they'll be right there competing for that one of those wild card spots. I think.
Yeah, the team that I'm looking at that could have some trouble is the Los Angeles Rams. Of course, they cut Todd Gurley. He's in Atlanta now. You still have two stud wide receivers, one coming off an injury in Cooper Kupp. You still have Robert Woods on the other side. But who's your slot wide receiver? And who's your running back? I don't know what's going to happen right there. I question that. Is Jared Goff your franchise quarterback going forward? At least according to the contract that you signed up before this time last year. The answer is yes. So we'll see if Jared Goff what can he do without a stud running back on his hip now. Arizona, I've been beating the drum of Arizona for this whole entire offseason. I like Kyler Murray. I think he's going to improve from year 1 to year 2. We'll see with Cliff Kingsbury now entering his second year as head coach. Will he be able to do? Their defense, they've drafted Simmons out of Clemson with their first round pick. Patrick Peterson, their defensive back, is old, but they still have Chandler Jones who can rush the pass. He's one of the best pass rushers in football. So can their defense be competitive enough to stay in games? We shall see. But I really like Arizona.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I think they're going to surprise a lot of people in this league. I mean, I have to look at their schedule, but I think they could probably win 8 or 9 games, and that'll really have that division just up for grabs if that's the case.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, look, we'll see. Like I said, that West is going to be a dogfight. I think every team has their issues, but I think it's not to the point where they can easily overcome it. I mean, that O-line is still an issue for Seattle. So you just mentioned it. They still got a lot. The Rams still have a lot of holes. The 49ers, I mean, we'll see. They still got they got Super Bowl hangover, and the Cardinals. I mean, look, they're young. You got a young head coach. We'll see if they can. Look, they were right there in a lot of games last year. Even the ones they ended up losing, most of those, I think half those games, they were right there. Came down to like the final couple of possessions. So, look, I know people don't want to pick Arizona because but look, I think Arizona could be right there. Like I've been saying, they could be right there for a wild card spot. I think they can.
Yeah, you got the extra wild card spot now, so they have just as much as a good chance as anybody else with the 9-7, perhaps 10-6 record. Should they have one of those two? They should have a 9 or 10 win season. So why not?
Yeah. Anything else? Anything else that tickles that sort of getting your sports blood boiling?
Nothing on my end. Again, I think all eyes are on Major League Baseball at this point. It's a fluid situation. We got to keep our eyes on it. But if there are games, you got the Cubs and Reds coming up here in a couple of hours. John Lester making his debut for the season. Of course, gonna somewhat reunite with old acquaintance Nick Castellanos out there from the Reds. So that should be a little fun to watch. And again, if there's games moving forward, I'm all for it. But again, it's the MLB, the Major League Baseball world is got some explaining to do and some problems to fix really quickly.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to what Major League Baseball does for this situation regarding with the Miami Marlins. And I'm waiting for the NBA to start at the end of this week. So as I said before, I think the games will be compelling, but it's just the storylines will be what happens off the court. But I'm waiting to watch the games. They'll start later this week. They'll mean something now. I know it's not officially the playoffs, but they're the seeding games. So these games starting on this Friday, they will count for something now.
I'm looking forward to the NBA, them coming back. It'll be, going to have real games started on Thursday. And like you guys have saying, I mean, I want to see how everyone looks and how the look and the feel of it. I think the NFL is going to look at what basketball is doing, and maybe they can, get some tricks from there. We'll see what baseball does. I mean, from what I can tell, they're saying that canceling the season is not on the table, not even postponing any more games. So we'll see what they do there. MLS round of 16, they're about to start tomorrow. We're doing this on a Monday. It's going to start tomorrow, Tuesday. Golf, I mean, congrats Michael Thompson, for winning yesterday. He said it was unfortunate that he didn't have his family there to help cheer him on, but over at the 3M Open. But got some big tournaments coming up these next few weeks too in golf. So we'll see what happens there. The European Tour is actually back up and running this weekend, so that'll be interesting there. So sorry about that. But I mean, look, sports are starting to come back slowly but surely, and yes, it's going to look a little different, but I mean, we'll see what happens. I mean, this is going to be an interesting next few weeks, if you will.
Yeah, really looking forward to it.
All right, you can follow me at Keena McGee on Twitter, at Keena_McGee on the Insta.
Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at SidKid80. Once again, at SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80. You can read all of my articles at weareregalradio.com. That's WEAREGA radio.com.
You can follow me at Truth and Reason _ on Twitter. You can follow the show's Twitter handle at 2NDCSCHI. Follow us, we follow back. You can also listen and or watch me and our good friend Derek Tate on the Go Route, our weekly podcast. Probably gonna try to get a new episode up for you today. Maybe couldn't do it yesterday, so we're gonna try to fit it in for you today and talk about that Jamal Adams trade.
All right, guys, it's good to be the three of us back together talking sports, and sports are slowly coming back. I'm sure that we'll have a lot to talk about on Monday and on Friday, Sid. So we'll see what happens here. So for the guys, I'm Lakeena. Stay safe, keep your hands washed, and be good to each other. This is Second City Sports Zoom style. We'll see you next time.
Wear your mask. Holla.